Okay, we'll wait another moment and then we'll get started because we got a lot to talk about today. Talking, we're going to be introducing the Vajrasattva practice today. So we should begin by doing our opening prayers. So if whichever book you have, we'll begin with the altruistic motivation and continue through. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dangwa je pe tra no par je pe ge. Par pa dang tam she ken pe bar du jo par je pa tam she ki so je pe. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den. Dog now dang drel nor du la na me pa yang dag pa zog pe zhang zhu brin po she to pa zha. The action bodhicitta prayer. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Deshe du sang ma ge gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Tren san sa wa dang gru par che pe pal dan la ma dam pa nam la kyab su chi yo. Yedam kilgor gila sok nam la kyab su chi yo. Sangye chom den de nam la gab su chi yo. Tam pe cho nam la kyab su chi yo. Pa pe ge du nam la kyab su chi yo. Pa wo ka jo cho kyong song me song yes she gi chang dang dem pa nam la kyab su chi yo. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta, and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shang Shu Ming Po Chi Ki Ba Sangye Nam La Kab Su Chi Chodang Shang Shu Senpai Yi So Klang De Shin Kab Su Chi Zitar Non Gi De She Yi Shang Shu Tuk Mi Ki Padan Shang Shu Senpei La Pala De Dag Rim Shin E Patar De Shin Dro La Pandandu Shang Shu Sem Ni Ki Gi Shin De Shin Du Ni La Pala Rinpa Shin Du La Pa Ji O. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Soki Chonam La Shang Shu Bardu Dagni Kapsu Chi Dagi Jin Soki Pe Sonam Gi Trola Penshir Sangye Ju Pa Sho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness in the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she dewa dang dewe gudang dempa jorchi. Dug now dang donel gi gudang drawa jorchi. Dug now me pe dewa dang midra wa jorchi. Nay ring chak dang ni dang drawe dang nam la ne pa jorchi. Next is the 7-limb prayer. So whichever book you have, the 7-limb prayer. I bow down respectfully with my body, speech, and faithful mind to all Tathagatas in the 10 directions, those who have already reached the Tathagata state, those who are reaching it at present, and those Tathagatas still to come. Through the power of Samantabhadra's prayers, may all Buddhas manifest vividly in my mind. I prostrate to them, multiplying my body as many times as there are atoms of the earth. In each atom, I visualize as many Buddhas as there are atoms, surrounded by countless bodhisattvas. Thus, all space is filled with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I praise all Buddhas through magnificent chanting, expressing the great ocean of their excellent qualities. To all Buddhas, I make offerings of various pure flowers, flower garlands, of music, anointing oils, magnificent light, and fragrant incense. I make offerings to them of fine garments, perfume, and potpourri, piled high as Mount Meru and arranged in the most beautiful way. I visualize the highest and most extensive offerings and offer them with great faith to all Buddhas. I prostrate to the Buddhas and make offerings to them, following the deeds of the great Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. I confess to you, Buddhas, whatever negative actions I have taken. I confess to you, Buddhas, whatever negative actions I have committed due to the power of anger, desire, and ignorance. I rejoice in the merit of all the Buddhas in the 10 directions, of the great Bodhisattvas and Pratyeka Buddhas, those who have attained arhatship, those who have entered the path to arhatship, and all other beings. I request to all great protectors and Buddhas to turn the highest wheel of Dharma as the light dispelling the darkness of beings in the 10 directions and leading them gradually to the enlightened state. I supplicate those Buddhas intending to pass into parinirvana to live long, for as many eons as there are atoms of the earth, in order to benefit all beings. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. The short mandala offering, in English and then Tibet. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the 4 continents, and the sun and the moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. To the lamas who possess the 3 kayas, I offer the outer, inner, and secret offerings with my body, wealth, and all that is visible. Please grant me the supreme realization, enlightenment. Whatever merit I've gathered through prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Sashi pocho jokshin meto tram, rirab linshi nite ken padi, sangye shin la mikte powayi, Drokun nam dag shindu ke washo. Kusong yong sog la me sog nam la. Chinang chang sum de shin yiki cho. Daglu long chog nakshi yong she la. La me chogi no jub sadu so. Chagsa wadang choching sapadang, Jesu yi rang kol sing so wa yi, Ge wa jung se dagi ji sagpa, Tam she zog pe shang jub chir no. Om Guru Ratna Mandala Puja Mega Samudra Saparana Sameye Ahom. The supplication to Lord Jigdan Sumgun. Unequaled refuge, ornament of the world, your fame pervades the 3,000 worlds. You are the victor Vajradhara without a doubt. I bow at the feet of the Father Jigdan Sumgun. Continually I think of no one but you. Compassionate one, grant your blessings. Dispel the darkness that surrounds my heart. Please bless me so that I can realize the unelaborated nature of mine. Gyabdrangi dome zamling yen, drag pe tong som yon la kyab, so me gawa dorje chang. Pajik tengom pe shaladu, Tag tu samgyu kyo le me. Jinji lob shik tok je chen. Yingi mon pa sa ne kang. Sam jodrel du to pa jinji lo. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the two vehicles and their combination according to the disposition and likewise the mental capacities of sentient beings. Samchen namgi sampadang lo yi je dak jitawa je chung tomok te pa yi choki korlo kordu so. Okay, thank you very much. Those are the opening motivational prayers. So today we're going to talk about Vajrasattva. We're going to introduce the Vajrasattva practice to you. But first, I want to try and help you to understand a little bit more about the meditational deities, the holy enlightened ones, the deities, these different names that we use for these practices that we do. So we've said many times that we have this true nature, and this true nature is like this indestructible diamond that is in our heart center. And this diamond is made up of bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And this diamond, within this diamond are all the enlightened ones, all the Buddhas, all the Bodhisattvas are all in this diamond. And this diamond has many, many, many different facets to it. And the facets represent each one of those different Buddhas, those Bodhisattvas, those holy enlightened ones, those deities. Each one of those facets is each one of those deities. Each one of those deities is made up of bodhicitta. They all come from the same diamond. So each one of the facets has a name, and that's the name of the deity, the enlightened one, etc. The difference between the deities, the difference between these enlightened ones, is their activities, the way in which they are actualizing the bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So we can think of this as ourselves, as ordinary human beings. And we have many jobs that we do around the house, for our work, for our recreation, and so on. And sometimes I'm just going to use some names, but sometimes we're like Cindy, the cook. And sometimes we're like George, the gardener. Sometimes we're like Charles, the cleaner. And sometimes we're like Paul, the plumber. And sometimes we're like Alice, the accountant. Or sometimes we're like Carl, the counselor. So we have all these different jobs that we do as a human being. So we still look the same. We still appear to be the same, but we're doing all these different things. And maybe for each one of these different things that we're doing, we put on different clothes. When we're the cook, we wear an apron. When we're a cleaner, maybe we wear some special garment that we don't get dusty ourselves and so on like that. When we're a plumber, we put on, some heavy duty clothes and we have our tools and so on, so we don't dirty our clothes and nick things up. We have special clothes that we wear when we do the plumbing. When we're the accountant, we put on a suit, we go to the office and we look professional and so on. And the same when we're a counselor. Maybe we put on some kind of a suit or some kind of special respectful clothing that we go to the medical office building where we work with other doctors and professionals and so on. Through all this, we're the same person. You know, we still have the same human qualities that we have and so on, but we're doing all these different jobs. And many people may only know us in a particular role, in a particular job that we do. Our patients are only going to know us as the counselor. Our clients are only going to know us as the accountant. The our people that come to the house and see how clean the house is are only going to know us as the person that takes care of the garden and cleans the house, and so on like that. So we have these many different roles. We're the same person doing all these different things. So this is a metaphor for the meditational deities. The meditational deities are all within our heart center. All within our heart center. And we access these meditational deities through the meditation. That's where we come to recognize these deities. You know, we can do it intellectually and learn about them, but that's a vicarious experience. We're not really being those deities. When we are doing these things in our ordinary life, we're actually being the cook, we're actually being the cleaner, and so on like that. So it's much easier for us to make associations with them. But in the case of our meditational deities, we have to really meditate to get to recognize these deities. So we've already talked about several of these deities. We talked about Manjushri, who is the Bodhisattva of wisdom. And not just the wisdom, the intellectual wisdom, but also the spiritual wisdom, the heart thoughts, the experience of meditation and knowing that. So that's Manjushri. And we talked about Shenrezig. Shenrezig is the Bodhisattva of compassion, how to take that wisdom and how to actualize that wisdom for the benefit of other beings. So that was Shenrezig. And then we talked about Green Tara, the mother of all the Buddhas. And she herself is a Buddha. So she is the mother of all the Buddhas. And she is the protection. She is the fearlessness. She represents that protection. The fearlessness as a mother would protect us in our ordinary lives and so on. So, and then today we're going to talk about Vajrasattva, who is the purifier, the confession Buddha, the Buddha of confession, the Buddha of purification. So we're going to get to that. So if you look at all these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all these holy enlightened ones, they all have the same appearance in terms of the anthropomorphic, way in which they're illustrated. They look like human beings, but they're human beings in the respect that they're within us. But they are spiritual beings that are within us. So when we give up our body, when we die, we lose our physical body, we lose our intellectual mind. And likewise, we would lose the physical qualities, the metaphors, the symbols, the illustrations of these meditational deities. But the spiritual aspect of these meditational deities would remain. They still remain, and they're like light. They're like light that is indestructible, does not go anywhere. The heart, this is the indestructible diamond. So what this means is that when we die, it does not die. It's indestructible. So this is within us, and this is where these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, these holy enlightened beings are. So they all have the quality of being like the Buddha. All these have bodhicitta. All these have the the holy enlightened mind within them. This is the intellectual mind. This is the center of the holy enlightened mind. So the commonality is the bodhicitta, and it's all for us to be able to recognize all of this with our mind, because it is our mind, our little mind, and our big mind that we experience everything. So we can say our little mind is apprehending, is seeing, is feeling, is smelling, is tasting, is hearing, all the appearances of all this phenomenal nature, this stuff around us that we're all familiar with, our bodies, our homes, nature outside, and so on like that. We're all apprehending that and processing that with our little mind. But at the same time, we have our spiritual mind, which is seeing this as all temporary, is recognizing that all this is just phenomenal. All this is just all relative to one thing or another. So when we meditate, we transcend this ordinary mind and elevate ourselves to this transcendent mind, this heart mind. And this heart mind is what is now perceiving this all in a complete light, in a complete way. Everything becomes clear. Everything becomes clear to us. So we call it the clear light of recognition, recognizing all of this. So we have these deities within us, these holy enlightened ones, and this is what we're trying to do, is to be able to, just like we sometimes are the plumber, sometimes we are the gardener, sometimes we are the accountant, sometimes we're the counselor, all the different things that we do with our intellectual mind and our ordinary physical body that we do. Now we're doing those things spiritually as the wise student, the wise person like Manjushri. We're doing it like Shenrezi, to have compassion for the suffering of beings, to have the ability to be able to protect through fearlessness. We're able to do that. And we're able to purify ourselves through our confession, which is what we're going to learn about today. So, but it's all the same entity, if you will, is the same Buddha. It's different ways in which the Buddha is actualizing, and we are the Buddha. So we're learning all these different ways in which we do these different spiritual things. Just like as being a human being, we're doing all these mundane things, we're doing all these spiritual things too. So this is why we do the sadhana practices. Sadhana, S-A-D-H-A-N-A. That's what these practices are called, sadhanas, and it means practice. Sadhana is a Sanskrit word that means practice. And we're doing these practices in order that we begin to recognize these spiritual aspects in which our conduct is coming out. We're allowing this to happen. And then we become not just the plumber and the cook and so on like that, but we become the Buddha who is a cook, the Buddha who is a plumber, the Buddha who is an accountant, and so on. So we're bringing the physical body together with the intellectual body, together with the spiritual body. And this is what allows us to recognize ourselves as a precious human being. So when we talk about the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, the first one is a precious human being that recognizes these 3 bodies, the physical, the intellectual, and the spiritual. So does this make some kind of sense? Does anybody have any questions or comments about this? Did it kind of clear anything up for you? Or did it muddy things up?
Lance, this was that's such a beautiful analogy. I think anyone who sees this will immediately understand your metaphors. Like I love how you're like, you're this, you're a sister, you're a daughter, you're a doctor. That I loved all of the analogies to the different deities. Like, well done. I loved it.
Very good. Thank you. So you can see that you are a complex being with all these different things, but ultimately it just becomes very simple. That's the goal, is to
Yes.
make it
Yeah.
effortless and simple.
Yeah, and I was as you were talking, I'm like, I am just Zara, right? Zara is the daughter, Zara is a sister, but to your analogy, I am Buddha. I am this. Like it all really just another gemstone. Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have a comment or question?
It's similar to what Zara was saying, that yeah, this is a very useful explanation for me and how to conceptualize in a way that's more practical for me and makes it more grounded. No, I appreciate this. I'm glad you laid it out like this. This definitely helps a lot.
Very good.
I
Thank
want
you.
more.
What was that, Mark?
I want a lot more.
You want more? All right, good.
Yeah, more analogies.
All right, more is coming. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, our essence is this true nature, and we're trying to find explanation for all this. And this is part of what it is to be a human being. A human being wants to know why and how and what it all is. But being a human being has its limitations, what we think about up here. But if we begin to think with our heart mind through our meditation, then a whole new vocabulary, a whole new world kind of opens up to us that has to be experienced. We learn about it through the Dharma, the different characters, the different Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so on. We're learning about that vicariously, but through the meditation, we actually become these deities. This is what we're doing. So the strongest point that we are able to do that with is the mantra, because the mantra is bringing together the physical, bringing together the intellectual to open up the lock that releases the spiritual. The spiritual is like blocked up by the physical and the intellectual, the emotions, the wrong thought, and so on, like that is all blocked up. But with the right key, with the right focus, with the right motivation, it opens up, and what's released is that heart center, that true nature, the spiritual aspect of this. So, and it happens in a way that is non-conceptual, because the purity of this is so pure that it hasn't been born as a human being. It hasn't been born in a way that we would automatically relate to it as an ordinary human being. What that means is it's all already here now. We just don't recognize it. We're human beings and we haven't recognized it this whole entire lifetime. We haven't recognized it in prior lifetimes. Maybe we had a yearning, maybe we had a feeling about it. And that's why we're here now, is to try and satisfy that feeling, to try and understand that. But it's already here. This is the true nature of what everything is this, what we would call this Buddha nature, this pure nature, this Buddha nature. We call it that. Other traditions may call it God. Other traditions may call it Christ. Other traditions may call it Yahweh, or may call it Brahma, or may call it Shiva, or call it Krishna, or call it whatever name that we have for this spiritual quality that all these different traditions are all trying to articulate. So it's already here, but we're all consumed with our physical and the intellectual. If we can relax that, then what comes up is the true nature, is the spirituality. So it's very subtle. We need to quiet things down in order to recognize that. So again, this is what we're doing through these practices, is being able to settle down our physical body, settle down our intellectual body, so that the spiritual body comes up very naturally. It arises. There's nothing to block it. And then we realize that we are everything. We are all this. So, okay. So unless there's another question or comment, I'm going to start with the explanation, the introduction to the Vajrasattva practice. So if you've got a deity yoga book, one of the big books like this, I think it's on page 80 something or other. We go to that. And if you have the red book that I sent to everybody that has the other practices in it that we've been using, it's in that book, and it's labeled as page 84, 85, 86, 87, so on like that. So if you can turn to that. Also, if you've got your package of the deity cards, that inside is a illustration of Vajrasattva. So you want to get that in front of you. Okay, so if you've got that picture, great. If you don't, it's on page 84 in the text. If you do have the picture like this, you can look on the back side and you can see that there are some helpful words here. We see that the name is Vajrasattva, which is in Sanskrit. Vajra means indestructible. Indestructible. Sat is a being, means a being. And Sattva, Va, is a holy being. So it's an indestructible holy being. In Tibetan, his name is Dorje Sempa. So Dorje means the indestructibility, is the Vajra, and Sem means the mind. The mind. And Sampa means the mind of a human being. So it says the Buddha of indestructible nature, indestructible nature. And this mantra below is the 100-syllable mantra. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. So, but before we do, let's turn the page. Let's cross over here and look at the picture of Vajrasattva. So the image of Vajrasattva looks like a human being, looks like us, and this is by design. That the past masters said, well, how do we introduce this to human beings who need to be able to recognize their spiritual nature? This was the genius of the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, and the masters that came after him by saying, well, we need to be able to help ordinary human beings to connect with that spirituality. So we're going to create these images that appear to be human beings, but they are just parts of what it is to be a human being. It's just an illustration of being a human being. They don't exist as human beings, except as we become these deities. Okay? So we see that Vajrasattva is sitting on a lotus pedestal. So we talked about that. The lotus comes from the seed that is in the bottom of samsara, the ocean of suffering. And when the conditions are right, the seed sprouts, the stem comes up, breaks the surface of the water, comes up into the clear atmosphere, and then here comes this beautiful lotus flower that is symbolic of this purity. It comes from the defilement. It came out of that muck and mire, but here it has transcended all through that water, through that ocean of suffering, to come to this nirvana, to this awakening above the suffering, beyond the suffering. So this is the representation of the lotus pedestal. Then we see that Vajrasattva is sitting on a white disc. And the white disc is the moon disc. And the moon is the reflection of the sun. It has no light of its own. It's reflecting the sun. And as such, we say it is the compassion. It is the cooling. The sun is like the wisdom, the burning wisdom, the wisdom fire. And the other side of this white disc is the yellow disc. The two are two sides of the same disc. One's the yellow burning wisdom fire, and the other one is the cooling compassion of that wisdom fire. So there's the wisdom fire, then there's the activity, the method of that fire. So that's the cooling of the moon. So all the peaceful deities that we've been studying these past weeks, and Vajrasattva included, are peaceful deities. So they are sitting on the moon disk, the cool moon disk, in order that they may show their method. They are here to present the method to us so that we can transform ourselves into these deities. And then he is sitting in the cross-legged position. You can see both of his feet are up in the crooks of his knees. You can see that, which is the classic Buddha position. He has a white body, a pure white body, bright white body, showing his purity. He's wearing the headdress of a bodhisattva, the tiara, the crown, and in that crown he's got five jewels, which are representative of the 5 Buddha families that we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks. When we're finished with these 5 deities, we're going to start talking about the 5 Buddha families. So he's got all those 5 families being symbolized in the crown of his head, of his clothing. He's got 2 arms and 1 face. So he represents the one true nature of all things. And his hands are, his left hand is in the receiving, and he's holding a bell. Whoops, he's holding a bell like this. And this bell represents the feminine aspect, the feminine wisdom is what this represents in the left hand. So the left, if you remember, we always say that the wisdom is coming in through the left side. It comes in through our left, comes into our body, circles the heart, and then goes out to the right in order to help other beings. So in the right hand, he's holding the Vajra, the Dorje. The Dorje is the Tibetan name for the Vajra, the Sanskrit name. And this is like a bolt of lightning. This is like, it represents the indestructible nature, the power of the indestructible nature. And this is the masculine principle. This is the masculine ability to be able to take the feminine wisdom and actualize it through the masculine skillful means. So to put it in more coarse, crude terminology, in our lives, it's perfectly normal for people to expect that the mother, has the wisdom, she raises the family, she takes care of the home, in the classic way of things being done and so on. The woman, the feminine, takes care of all that, and she gives birth to all of this and so on. The masculine is the one who goes out and takes that wisdom and goes and has the job, has the different things that they have to do to bring back what's necessary for the sake of the family and so on. So the two go together. It's the power, the indestructible power of the skillful means of the male that comes from the wisdom of the feminine, of the female. So these two, you see, are what is being, are the implements of Vajrasattva, which is being characterized that he is the embodiment of both of these things, the masculine and the feminine. He's not unique to this because all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, including all as human beings, all have the masculine and the feminine within us. But here it's being really characterized so we can understand it very clearly. This is part of the confession. This is part of the purification process of what Vajrasattva does, what his activity is this purification of confusion, the purification of disease, the purification of wrong thought, and so on like that. So this is what he represents. This is what he is here to help us to do. Any questions or comment? Okay. So then we go to the sadhana, we go to page 85, and I'm sorry that I know it's in very small print, but if we can read at the very top where it says the introduction to the Vajrasattva meditation practice. So this you should read very often in the beginning. There was an introduction like this in the Green Torah that we did the past couple of weeks. So you should read that until you become very, very familiar with it, and then continue to read it from time to time to refresh our memory on this. But this gives us a very clear introduction to what the deity is about, in this case, Vajrasattva. So please read along with me as I recite this out loud. It says, generally speaking, virtuous and non-virtuous acts depend on mind. Mind is the master, and the body and the speech are the servants. I'll read that again. Mind is the master, and the body and speech are servants. So the body is the physical body, and the speech is the intellect, is the throat, is the speech, our voice. Everything coming through is nothing more than an actualization of what we're thinking, what our brain is thinking. But the mind here is the heart mind. So making that distinction. So mind is the master. The heart mind, the spiritual mind, is the master, and it's the physical body and it's the intellectual mind, the speech, that are the servants for that. Back to the text, it says, driven by the power of afflictive emotions, controlled by desire, hatred, and so forth, we create non-virtues such as the 5 heinous karmas, the 5 close karmas, the 10 non-virtues, and breaking vows and samayas. So if you want to take notes on this, so we go back, it says, driven by the power of the afflictive emotions. So the afflictive emotions are the 5 poisons, the causes of the 5 poisons that cause all the 84,000 emotions. So you've heard us talk about that there's 84,000 afflictive emotions, but the root cause of those 84,000 are the 5 poisons, which are ignorance, desire, hatred, jealousy, and greed. Those are the 5 poisons. So the afflictive emotions controlled by desire, hatred, and so forth. So there it's spelled out for us. We create non-virtues such as the 5 heinous karmas. So the 5 heinous karmas are the killing of the father, killing of the mother, killing of an arhat, a holy person, harming a Buddha or the Buddha temples or the books and so on like that, and causing a schism in the Sangha, in the community of the Buddha. So those are the 5 heinous crimes that are the crimes that create the greatest suffering to other beings and also to ourselves, and will undermine all the good things that we may have done, at least for a period of time, until we can repair those terrible things that we've done, those 5 heinous crimes that we've done, to restore and get back to our pure nature. The 5 close karmas are to destroy a temple or a stupa, to destroy the Buddha's speech and books, the criticize bodhisattvas, swearing on Buddha, Dharma, and lying, and distorting, changing the truth to support wrong actions. So in other words, prevarication of the truth. You know? So those are the 5 close karmas. So the 5 heinous karmas, the 5 close karmas. And remember, karma means an action. So these are actions that are taken. The 10 non-virtues. So we've talked about the 10 virtues and the 10 non-virtues. We talked about 3 of the speech, 3 of the body, 3 of the body, 4 of the speech, and 3 of the mind. So we talked about those. The 10 non-virtues, and breaking vows and samayas. So the vows are the promises that we make to ourselves, to our Buddha nature, that we are going to clean ourselves up, that we are going to purify ourselves. And the activities that we take to do that are the samayas. The way in which we do that are the samayas. So if we break those vows, if we break those samayas, we do negativity to recognize that and to be able to, so in order that we may repair them, to correct them. Okay, back to the text. It says, it is non-virtuous if we do these things ourselves, if we ask others to do them for us, or if we rejoice when these are done by others. So whether we're doing these ourselves, whether we ask somebody else to do them for us because we don't want to do them, we don't want to sully ourselves, we'll get somebody else to do it because, you know, we have these manipulative powers to be able to do that. Or that somebody else, without our having to say to them, oh, will you do these things? Here it is, and I rejoice that you've done this. So not only that, when the mind is under the control of desire, hatred, and so forth, we continue to create non-virtue, even if we hear, study, and practice the precious Dharma. So what it's saying is, although we may be students of the Dharma, we may be practicing and all that, but we still are subject to desire. We still are subject to hatred, to the poisons, to all the emotions, because we're still impure. We haven't gotten ourselves to be the stable level of being an enlightened one. So there's a lot of backsliding, in other words. And we have to be wary of that. We have to always be looking for that so that we can correct that. It says, we continue to create non-virtue even if we hear, study, and practice the precious Dharma. Then these non-virtues will bring suffering and undesirable conditions. So as we do these things and so on, we cause suffering for ourselves and suffering for other beings. These non-virtues can be created when we conquer our enemies, protect our relatives and friends, defend our own body, and accumulate wealth. So in other words, the things that we do every day, the things that we're trying to do, we're trying to protect our families, we're trying to protect our friends, we're trying to enjoy ourselves, we're trying to have good jobs and so on, so that we can have a nice home and plan for our retirement and so on. But what harm do we do in the process of all those things? That's what we have to recognize and balance out, so that we're not doing it in harmful ways. We need to do these things. We need to be practical, but we don't need to do them in a way that causes harm to ourselves and to others, suffering. We leave these things behind when we face death, but the non-virtues will follow us like a shadow, life after life, and become a source of all sufferings. So these things that we do, these negative things, these positive things that we do, when we die, we can't take those things, the results of those things, with us. If we have a big house, we can't take that. We have a nice car, we can't take that. If we have close friends and relatives, when we die, we can't take them with us. We can't do anything like that. But what we can take is we take the residues, we take the karmic results, the seeds of the results of those things. That's what we take with us. They're like a shadow. These things that stay with us, they're nebulous. They're not physical. They're not intellectual. They are spiritual seeds that become the seeds for our future lives. And these are the source for our sufferings. So these seeds can be positive seeds. There could be good things that we do. They could be negative seeds. But all these things, we know that positive can very quickly turn into negative because of the phenomenal nature of samsara. Things can change and so on very quickly because of impermanence and so on. So we need to recognize these things, take responsibility for these things, and where we can, to neutralize those seeds before we die, so that so that when we do die, and if you remember, we talked about the baggage that we have on our back when we were talking about the 12 links of interdependent origination, and that bag is holding all those things that we hold on to, all the results of karma. And if we can remove all those things in this life, then that bag is very light, or the bag isn't even there. That we purified ourselves, that we don't even have those karmic seeds to take with us into the next life. Any comments or questions?
Such a good teaching. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a question about I think the close karmas, I think it was. There's one with like criticizing the speech of the Buddha or criticizing the Dharma.
Yes.
I believe. What about and a lot of times I'll think about, or even in this group, raise stuff of like certain doubts, or I don't know about this part of the, kind of working through that and thinking about that of
Well, is that criticizing, or is that just having a doubt and asking a question?
yeah, I guess that's the differentiation, and also something that always drew me to Buddhism the first was it seemed like this kind of even like certain quotes from the Buddha of this almost encouragement to be like checking the teachings, like kind of questioning the teachings, like finding out for yourself, like really that seemed to be in the spirit of the teachings themselves. And so, but I do wonder sometimes, it was like, do I need to chill out some with like, or just be careful how I phrase things? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right, how you phrase things and so on, and not to be critical about it. Saying things like, I may not understand what this bodhisattva or what this Buddha is saying. I may not understand it now, but I'm going to try and do it, rather than saying, oh, he don't know what he's talking about. He's crazy. you know, and anybody who believes in what he's saying is crazy too, being critical of what they say. Oh, that can't be true, that's not true, and so on like that. There's a difference. So it's healthy to have doubt and to try and understand the source of the doubt, but it's another thing to be harmfully critical. Okay? Okay, so now back to the text. The next paragraph. It says, therefore, it is very wise to purify all the non-virtues we create before the results arise. I'm going to repeat that. Therefore, it is very wise to purify all the non-virtues we create before the results arise. So that's what I was saying before. If we can remove all those things from the bag that we're carrying around with us before we die, before those results manifest, then we can go into the next life being that much more pure, that much more effortless, and have a good rebirth. If we're coming back, maybe we're going to come back as a purer bodhisattva than we are now as a result of doing that. Or are we going to leave those things in the bag and now we have to deal with all those personal issues, more purification that we could have dealt with in this lifetime? Now we have to deal with it in the lifetime ahead of us. So whether it is a lifetime like that we're talking about, or we're talking about something that we did today or yesterday, and now we have to deal with that today or tomorrow, can we fix that today or tomorrow and not let it accrue, get worse and worse and worse for the time when we die, and then we got to take it into our next life altogether. If we use back to the text, if we use the 4 powers, this purification can be very effective. So there's 4 powers of purification. The 4 powers are remorse, antidote, resolve, and reliance. So the remorse is recognizing that you did something wrong and you're sorry for it. That's the remorse. The second is the antidote, that there is a way to be able to overcome the result of that. Maybe it's telling the truth. Maybe it's going on if you stole something, you took something, or you lied about something, that immediately going to the person who was the object of that non-virtue and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. Here's what I did. Here's my repayment for what it is that I did, and I hope that you forgive me," someone like that. So that is the antidote. The resolve is to continue to do that. That although we've done this negative thing, we have applied the antidote to it. Now we're resolving not to do it again. And then the next one is the reliance, that I'm going to rely on my spirituality. I'm going to rely on this practice to help me to remain pure, to not do these things. And if in the event that I do these things, that I can repair this again, that I can continually do these things and repair them until finally we've repaired them for the last time, and we have become virtuous in this endeavor. So it's totally forgiving. It's like what Matt was just saying about, if we're we're critical about the Dharma, the Buddhas, and so on like that, that they are always compassionate. They will always forgive us. It's within ourselves. We'll always forgive ourselves. And because we forgive ourselves, we also can forgive other beings. And this is what's hard. We can forgive ourselves, but we hold it against other beings. So we got to get over that and say, oh, they're just like me. They made a mistake. They may not see it, but nevertheless, I have to have forgiveness in my heart. I have to have compassion for them. And maybe I know a way to be able to help them in order to have that forgiveness and to be able to correct themselves. And that's our compassion, that we're teaching them the wisdom that we know, that is the root cause of the compassion. The compassion and wisdom, two sides of the same hand. So that's the reliance on the practice. Back to the text, it says, in the Vajrayana, the indestructible path, the indestructible vehicle, the Vajrayana. This is all Vajrayana that we're talking about here. All these deities are all Vajrayana deities in this situation. It says Vajrasattva, the indestructible holy being, meditation is a special practice for the purification of non-virtue. So this is very specific that this is what this is for. So with confidence and without hesitation, enter into the Vajrasattva practice. Have sincere remorse for evil deeds. Confess them and resolve not to create any more negative karma, even at the risk of your own life. So this is an important part, even at the risk of your own life. If we continue to be so egotistical, to think of ourselves as being more important, that our salvation is more important than that of other beings, then that right there is a flaw. Right there is a terrible deed. And we need to get over that. We need to be able to look at our life as temporary, because it is temporary, and say, I will not risk my life, or rather, I will not risk the loss. I will not risk losing somebody else's virtue to maintain my own virtue. I will put them in front of me. It's more important that they are able to see their non-virtue than for me to create more non-virtue by saying I'm more important. An extreme example of this is self-defense in the face of someone coming at us to do us great harm. If I take the life of somebody who is trying to do me harm, if I take his life, it means I'm trying to protect my life as being more important than their life. I'm going to kill them so that they don't kill me, because my life is more important to me. But if I say, I'm going to do everything I can to disarm that person without killing them, that's what I'm going to do. I don't want to die, that's for sure. But at the same time, I'm not going to kill somebody else to protect my own life, because now, although it was in self-defense, now I have the stain of killing somebody. And I have that weight to carry with me. And that is one of the first precepts of the 5 heinous crimes, of not killing another being. So, whether it's my father or my mother, it doesn't matter. It's somebody's father, it's somebody's mother. So we can't justify killing somebody else to protect ourselves.
Lance,
yes.
does it remain non-virtuous even though it couldn't be avoided?
There are mitigating circumstances. There are mitigating circumstances. If it was accidental, if you really didn't mean to do it, it happened, you were trying to disarm the person, but the gun went off and it killed them, and you were trying not to kill them, but you had to get the gun, there are mitigating circumstances. However, there still is the deed that you took someone's life, and you have that to carry with you. So what the intention is, there's other things. So we talk about that when we talk about karma, when we go into more detail about karma, that there's the motivation that you do something, there's the intention that you do something, there's the result, and whether you're happy in the result or you're remorseful for the result, things like that, all strengthen the negative karma aspect of that. But if it happened accidentally, then that softens it a little bit. but still you have that deed that you have to carry with you. Okay, so even at the risk of your own life, back to the text, it says, then take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Cultivate the mind of enlightenment, which is the four thoughts, which is the bodhicitta, the four immeasurable qualities, the mind of enlightenment. Recite the mantra. The mantra in this case would be the mantra of Vajrasattva, and meditate on emptiness as the antidote and reliance. So to meditate on the emptiness is the phenomenal nature, is the impermanence of this, the emptiness of this, that this is all temporary. This is all just within our intellectual mind. We're imprisoned by our intellectual mind. We are tortured by our intellectual mind. Our intellectual mind is the demon. That's what is holding us in this place and so on, keeping us from being free. So if we meditate on emptiness as the antidote and the reliance, so to be able to recognize the phenomenal nature, the emptiness of phenomenal nature, and release the attachment and the aversions that we have in phenomenal nature, that is the goal. That is what we are trying to do. Okay. I had to use my spyglass. I gotta interject something here, because yesterday I did something, and I was thinking, and it came to me while I was reading this, and I paused for a moment as I was reading this, because I had this flashback of what I did yesterday and thinking about this. And that was, I was thinking about the politics of all this garbage that's going on in our lives and so on. And I was thinking about, how, what can be done, what's not being done. And I saw that, there was an offer, that if a couple of these guys running for president, if they get to be president, that they were going to issue a pardon to the crazy guy, right? And I saw this as a win-win. This has some, good stuff about it, and it's not a terrible thing, and it's going to be a win-win on several different sides and so on. So I saw it as a good thing. The question becomes how to get that crazy guy to accept this in the first place, So part of his tactic to get to where he is has been the denigration of other beings, the manipulation of other beings. And the way he's done that by stepping on them and questioning them and saying terrible things about them, having all these different names about them and so on like that. And maybe I'm doing the same thing by saying he's a crazy person and so on like that. So I wrote this thing and I sent it off to some people that I thought maybe could be helpful in being able to make a difference with this, because I said to him, well, what you got to do is you got to focus on his weakest side. And his weakest side is his paranoia, because his paranoia has got to be the basis of all these other things that he does. His lack of well-being is what creates this great big image that he makes of himself. And if you can attack his paranoia and really pile on, it may drive him to the point of either his implosion, or at the very least, and maybe the best, is his acceptance of the idea, well, if I withdraw from this, I'm going to get pardoned, and it's a win-win for everybody. So as I was reading this, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm suggesting that they really pound on him with his paranoia. And that's a negative thing. That's not a good thing. and I thought about that, and that's what gave me cause of it. So that's how subtle this can be. I can say, well, there was a redemption because I say, well, then he could accept himself, as he could accept his bad deeds, and then accept that he can be pardoned or something like that, and that's the win-win. So maybe that's the positive side or the other side of that, but it comes from pounding on him. Without the pounding on him, it may not come to pass. So anyway, I'm just bringing that to light because that's how subtle these things can be. Okay, so now we go back to the text. So the visualization. Above the crown of my head, I visualize a white lotus with a moon disk seat. On the moon disk seat is a white syllable hung, which transforms into a Vajra. With a hung at its center, light radiates from this hung, purifying the obscurations of all beings. So if you turn to page 88 in the booklet that you have right there in front of you, and you look at the bottom of the page, is a white hung. You see the syllable there. You see it in the Sanskrit, and you see it in the English transliteration of the Tibetan word, the hung. So go back, it says, above the crown of my head, I visualize the white lotus. So here's the white lotus that Vajrasattva was sitting on a moon disk that he's sitting on. And on the moon disk is a white syllable hung. That's on page 88, which transforms into a Vajra, the indestructible Vajra, the Dorje. This turns into a Vajra with a hung in its center, and white light radiates from this hung, purifying the obscurations of all beings. So this white light is going out in all 10 directions, purifying all the beings. So this is the gross visualization. Okay? This light is offered to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are all within ourselves, and to all beings that have these enlightened beings within them. This light is offered to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The light returns and dissolves into the seed syllable hung. So this light goes out from this hung, the top of my head, goes out to all beings, goes out to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Then the light comes back into the hung syllable, and the light then transforms into Vajrasattva. So it's like all this energy is going out. All this pure energy is going out to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in our heart center. And then from them, all these blessings are coming. All this concentrated energy is coming and coming back into the hung syllable, which is inside of ourselves. And the light returns and dissolves into the root lama. And then this energy then ignites and becomes Vajrasattva. Okay, the holy enlightened being, who's white in color, holds a Vajra and a bell. He sits gracefully in the half lotus posture and wears silken robes and all the precious ornaments. So we can see all of that, all the precious ornaments. He's wearing the necklaces and he's wearing the silken garments. He's got the headdress and so on like that. These are all indicative of being a holy enlightened being, being a bodhisattva or a meditational Buddha, which he is. So now, Vajrasattva is like in our heart center, and he's like a guest. He's like a guest. He's not permanent. We want him to be permanent, but right now it's like a guest in our home. So we've talked about this before, that we make these offerings to these beings who are in our heart center, that are like guests in our home. And like in India, when a guest comes to your home, they're crossing over the fields and it's hot and it's dry and so on. And we're offering drinking water. We're offering washing water. We're offering flowers. We're offering incense. we're offering light, we're offering scented water, we're offering food, and then we're offering music, we're offering rejoicing. So these are the offerings that we're making here as the guest in our home. So we say, Om Vajrasattva Saparivara Argam Pratitsa Soha. So Om is the holy enlightened body, speech, and mind of the deity, of the enlightened one. In this case, is Vajrasattva. Vajra is the Tibetan way of saying Vajra. They don't say a V, they say Vajra. So they say Vajrasattva. Sattva is the enlightened being, the Vajrasattva. The holy enlightened body, speech, and mind of Vajrasattva. Sapariwara means, and all your retinue. It means all the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all the other associated holy beings, the Dakinis and Dakas and so on, that are all part of the family of Vajrasattva. I'm making the offering of Argam, which is the drinking water, Pratitsa. I make the offering like this, right? And my hands are inside, they're clicking at my heart. I'm making these offerings. I make the offering, so be it, may it be accomplished. So this is the mantra. Om Vajrasattva Saparivara Argam Pratitsa Soha. Om Vajrasattva Saparivara Padyam Pratitsa Soha. Om Vajrasattva Saparivara Pushpam Pratitsa Soha. Om Vajrasattva Saparivara Dupam Pratitsa Soha. Om Vajrasattva Saparivara Alokam Pratitsa Soha. Om Vajrasattva Saparivara Gande Pratitsa Soha. Om Vajrasattva Saparivara Nuitaya Pratitsa Soha. Om Vajrasattva Saparivara Shapta Pratitsa Soha. So with the bell and dorje, I am rejoicing. I am rejoicing that the deities are within me. I'm recognizing the deities, etc. So I'm rejoicing. I'm ringing the bell of rejoicing. And with the drum, I'm calling all the dakinis, all the dharma protectors, all the other deities, all the other beings. I'm waking them up within myself, my awareness of them within myself and external to myself, and the vibration is going all out around me to bring all these deities into this place. So that's the rejoicing, the offerings, and then the praise. It says, Dorje Sempa, so I'm holding the Vajra at my heart, and I have the bell in my left hand. It says, Vajrasattva Mahasattva, the great mind, the embodiment of all the Buddhas, the Samantabhadra, the Dharmakaya, I prostrate to you, holder of the Vajra. So Vajrasattva, the holy enlightened being. Mahasattva means the great being. Maha means great, and Sattva is a holy being. The great mind, the big mind, the embodiment of the Buddhas. This is all within me. I am the embodiment of all the Buddhas. The Samantabhadra, the Dharmakaya, this is within me. All of us. We all have this within ourselves. The Dharmakaya. I prostrate to you, holder of the Vajra. Holder of the Vajra, the indestructible wisdom. So I prostrate to you and I rejoice. I ring the bell. So it's mindfulness. We're praising the Vajrasattva and all the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We're praising all this within ourselves. We're recognizing all this within ourselves. So then we would say it in Tibet. Dorje Sampa Sampa She, Dorje Deshen Sakpa Kun, Dorje Dangpo Kuntu Zang, Chak Chal Chana Dorje La O. So remember, what we're doing is building mindfulness. We're using replacement therapy. We're replacing all our non-virtuous thought, all our confusion, all our doubts. We're replacing it with all this pure visualization. So we can think about, oh, this is what I want to do. We can aspire to do this. We can read this on the paper without reciting it. And it's a vicarious experience. But as we animate this, as we bring the words, as we bring the vibrations, as we bring the power up off the page into our heart mind, into our intellectual mind, into our body, and we're engaging all this, you see, now we're becoming one with it. We are becoming the physical, intellectual, spiritual bodies all coming together. So it creates mindfulness, and it creates a habitual tendency. Our habitual tendency up to this point has been the non-virtuous, has been the confusion. Now we're replacing it with a joyful noise. The mantra, the recitation, the offerings, the ringing of the bells and the drum and so on. A joyful noise. We're replacing it with all of that. And slowly, 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 it begins to transform us. They become tools in our transformation. So now we come to the next page, 87, which is the mantra visualization. It says, at Vajrasattva's heart level is a Vajra on a moon disk. At the center of the Vajra is a Hung syllable surrounded by the 100-syllable mantra. So we visualize, here is Vajrasattva, and he's sitting on our head. And at his heart center is the Hung syllable. So you can refer to that on page 88, the Hung syllable. At his heart is the Hung syllable surrounded by the 100-syllable mantra. So if you look on the back of the card, in English, you can see the mantra, but if you look on page 88 and you see at the top of the page, there is the Sanskrit 100 syllables of his mantra. So this is the most challenging of the mantras that we have been introduced to so far in our meetings. This is the most challenging for us to recite and to memorize. But yet, there is great, 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 great power in chanting this and in memorizing this. So I can't say how important it is anymore. It is so powerful. So this mantra is going around the heart center of Vajrasattva. And then it says, the radiating light from the rotating mantra completely purifies the obscurations of all beings, and they become Vajrasattvas. So we're seeing this Vajrasattva sitting on top of our head, and this light from this rotating 100-syllable mantra is going out to all beings and purifying all beings, as it says, and they are becoming Vajrasattva. The light returns and dissolves into the mantra of the seed syllable. So the mantra is going around the seed syllable, the hum, and it comes back, that light comes back to it. It goes out and comes back. It has no beginning. It has no end. It's this continuum of this vibration. So it's just kind of harmonizing with it and strengthening it. And then it says, nectar produced from these syllables flows through the right great toe of Vajrasattva. It enters the crown of my head, washing out all defilements, illnesses, and obscurations through the pores of my skin and the two lower openings of my body. These obscurations leave the body in the form of a smoky, dark liquid. Then I am filled with nectar and completely purified, clear as crystal. So we visualize that Vajrasattva is on our head and that his right foot is extended out in front of him like green tar. Remember green tar, her right foot? As a matter of fact, if you look on bottom of page 87, is a image of Vajrasattva, and you see his right foot is extended out, and his right big toe is on the crown of your head. And that crown of your head is the aperture of the center channel that runs through your body. And your life energy is running through that center channel. And the aperture, the hole in which that opens up, is called the aperture of Brahma, is what that's referred to as. And his big toe is on that aperture of Brahma. So, as this mantra is being recited, it becomes light. It becomes nectar light. Nectar. And that nectar then is in a liquid form, and his body is filled with that. And then it starts to come down from his big toe into your center channel through the aperture, into your heart center. And you're reciting this mantra, and now this mantra is going around your heart center, the home at your heart center. So you're visualizing this like all together. You know, we're breaking it down, but it happens all kind of like simultaneously as you get more adept at being able to do this. So as this nectar is coming down, it's flushing out all the negativity, all the poisons, all the confusion, all the darkness that is within your body is being flushed out down through the lower pores of your body. It's going out through the anus. It's going out through the urethra. It's going out through the pores of your skin. It's being forced out. It's flushing out. And then what's filling up is that pure nectar that's coming from Vajrasattva. So we're being refreshed. We're being filled with the wisdom purity of Vajrasattva that's flushing out all this negativity and so on. So it says, it enters the crown of my head, washing out all defilements, illness, and obscurations through the pores of my skin and the two lower openings of my body. The obscurations leave the body in the form of smoky, dark liquid. Then I am filled with nectar and completely purified, clear as crystal. And I've heard of people, I know of people who have engaged in this practice over and over and over and over and over again. This is actually the second practice of the Nundro, which is the purification practice, where their skin in their feet and so on begins to peel. You know, it begins to peel away, not in a bad way, but what it is like that energy, that negative energy that's being forced out is sloughing off all the dead skin, all the outer skin and so on, that's coming out through the pores of the body and the two apertures of the body and so on. So I've seen this happen to people. So it's very, very, very powerful. And then what's left, of course, is this fulfillment of this clear nectar within oneself. Any questions or comments? Okay, well, this is a good time to take a break. So we'll come back at the top of the hour. My clock says it's 38 minutes to 11. We're 38 minutes to 10 wherever you're living. So we'll come back at in 22 minutes or so at the top of the hour, and we'll continue this, okay? All right, very good. Thank you, Matt. Zara, are you with us? Okay. All right, so we've been talking about Vajrasattva and the Vajra visualization, as well as the visualization of Vajrasattva sitting on the lotus pedestal and the moon disk. And so we're visualizing now the 100-syllable mantra. So we visualize the hung at our heart center, and it is a white hung. So if you, maybe you have something like this. So here's a white hung. It visualizes your heart, and that the mantra is circling around the heart in a clockwise direction. And that white light is coming from the seed syllable, the hung, and it goes out to the syllables going round, the mantra going round, and then the mantra goes out to all beings, white light going out to all beings, and we visualize all beings as Vajrasattva. They may not realize it, but we see the potential. This is the power of being the deity, that we see all things as a Buddha field. We see all things in true nature. We see all things as the Buddha field of the deity. In this case, it's Vajrasattva. So all have been purified. So the mantra in English is Om Vajrasattva Samaya. Help to protect my vow to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind-heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realizations of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus I signify my unity with non-duality, Ah. So Om is the body, speech, and mind, the holy enlightened body, speech, and mind of the deity. In this case, it's Vajrasattva. The Samaya, this is the practice for Vajrasattva. So we are the vow taker. We are taking the vow, and this is our practice, the Samaya, to become Vajrasattva. And we're asking Vajrasattva, who is within ourselves, to protect my vow, to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. So we're having a conversation with ourselves. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me, be loving towards me. So as my practice grows, as I become more and more familiar with my practice and the results of my practice, may you grow with me along with that you will be with me. This is Vajrasattva is one of the very fundamental practices and teachings that we engage in. So this will stay with us throughout the rest of our lives. Be loving towards me. Show me wisdom. Loving is like wisdom. Show me the wisdom. Show me the love. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. So the attainments are the siddhis. S-I-D-D-H-I. Siddhis are the attainments. And a siddha, H-I-D-D-H-A, is one who has attained the attainments, the siddhis. So to master the powers beyond body and nature. So it's beyond anything that we can imagine as ordinary human beings. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature, our human nature, our relative human nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. So this is the enlightened body, speech, and mind. The Om Ah Hum. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. And the way that we do all these different things, we do it with bodhicitta. Make my mind, heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. So may through the four powers, may my heart, mind be good, virtuous, and auspicious by doing all the things that we do with loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And when we fail, to use the remorse, to be sorry for the things that we do, to have the remedy, to have the medicine, to have the antidote for the things that we do, to make apology for it, and so on like that. So to have the remorse, the remedy, excuse me, as I have a moment here, the resolve not to do it again, not to do these things again, as I continue to restore my vow not to do these things, the resolve, and then the reliance on the practice to do this practice over and over again in order to prevent myself, to purify myself. It's through this that I'm doing my confession. And the confession is the first step towards forgiveness, realizing that we made a mistake and using the reliance of the practice to confess that thing. So I remembered this as the 4 R's: the remorse, the remedy, the resolve, and the reliance. Those were the 4 R's, were the way I learned it years ago. So make my mind, heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Auspicious that I may be able to help other beings, to overcome suffering for the sake of other beings, and revel in the bliss of the 4 joys. So the 4 joys are the 4 vast immeasurables of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the 4 loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, the 4 joys. So there's many other ways of looking at the 4 joys, and we'll, as we do other practices, we'll recognize them. But for the beginning time, just to look at revel in the bliss of the bodhicitta, the 4 immeasurable qualities of bodhicitta. O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. So this essence, this pure quality, this Vajrasattva purification, do not abandon me. Grant me the realizations of the indestructible nature. So as we continue doing our practices over the years and so on, wisdoms will come up. We will go through a recitation of doing this mantra, and then we will have a dissolution. And during the dissolution, we will enter into like a shamatha, a calm abiding meditation. And then from the calm abiding meditation, vipassana will come up. Insight will come up. We'll have realizations of this indestructible nature, how this manifests within myself and how this manifests outside of myself, or how my activities then are a result of this purification, how I manage to attain a higher level, a clear level of freedom. Grant me the realizations of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. We see that all this is all within ourselves, all within this indestructible diamond, this nature of this idea of oneness. Thus, may I signify my unity with non-duality. And I'm cutting through this. I'm using the sword of Manjushri that cuts through all the duality, that cuts through all the confusion, cuts through all the afflictive emotions. Cutting through all that to the sense of what we call oneness, non-duality, unimpededness, unelaborated nature, non-objectifiable. You can't identify what it is, but it's within our heart center. So that's the meaning of the mantra. So I suggest that you commit that to memory as soon as it's convenient for yourself. Whatever practices you're doing now, we could talk about it one-on-one, but I think to migrate to start incorporating these deity yoga practices into your daily practice is going to give you great help. So now we recite this in Sanskrit. Now the Sanskrit is the language that the Buddha spoke. So these mantras are in the Sanskrit language, and they're charged with spiritual energy. And this energy has never gone away. This vibration has continued. It's never been born. It's never died. It has continued. And what we're doing now is just kind of harmonizing with it. So we're realizing that. So we say, Om Vajrasattva Samaya, Manu Palaya, Vajrasattva Tenopa, Drista Dredo Mebawa, Suto Kayo Mebawa, Supo Kayo Mebawa, Anu Raktu Mebawa, Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa, Sara Karma Sutsame, Sitsan Triya Kuru Hong, Ha 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 ho Bhagawan, Sara Tathagata, Bajra Mame Mansa, Bajri Baba, Maha Samaya Satwaha. So as practice to do this, I suggest that you write this out yourself and write it in phrases that helps you to recite this and to memorize this. Here it's written all out, in the way that we would normally do something in English, and they do in Tibetan as well. But I think doing it in phrases helps me because I kind of visualize things. Maybe you don't do it that way, but if you do, whatever helps you to do this, you should do this to help memorize this. So the melody is part of this, and the melody will also help you to memorize this. So we take our beads, and we're not going to get through a whole mile around. It takes me about 25 minutes to go through a mile around, doing it quite swiftly, doing it fast. So at this point, I think we'll just do 21 recitations and to give you the flavor of this. And if you want the recordings of this done by Kenshin Rinpoche and Khenpo Sultram, it's on the website. It's on our website under the audio, and there's two versions of it. There's one with the melody, and there's one without the melody, where it's just straight chanting. So it's there that you can use that whenever it's possible. So here is the mantra. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Palaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bawa Suto Kayo Me Bawa Supo Kayo Me Bawa Anuraktu Me Bawa Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsame Sitsan Triya Kuru Hong Ha 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 ho Bhagawan Sara Tathagata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Satwaha Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manu Palaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bhava Sutokayo me bawa, Supokayo me bawa, Anuraktu me bawa, Sara siddhi me prayatsa, Sara karma sitsa me, Sitsan triya kuruhong. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan, Saratada gata Bajrama me mansa Bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuruhong. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata Bajrama me mansa Bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo me bhava Sutokayo me bhava Supokayo me bhava Anuraktu me bhava Sara siddhi me prayatsa Sara karma sutsa me Sitsan triya kuruhong. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata Bajrama me mansa Bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo me bhava Sutokayo me bhava Supokayo me bhava Anuraktu me bhava Sara siddhi me prayatsa Sara karma sutsa me Sitsan triya kuruhong. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata Bajrama me mansa Bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo me bhava Sutokayo me bhava Supokayo me bhava Anuraktu me bhava Sara siddhi me prayatsa Sara karma sutsa me Sitsan triya kuruhong. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata Bajrama me mansa Bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo me bhava Sutokayo me bhava Supokayo me bhava Anuraktu me bhava Sara siddhi me prayatsa Sara karma sutsa me Sitsan triya kuruhong. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata Bajrama me mansa Bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo me bhava Sutokayo me bhava Supokayo me bhava Anuraktu me bhava Sara siddhi me prayatsa Sara karma sitsa me Sitsan triya kuruhong. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata Bajrama me mansa Bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo me bhava Sutokayo me bhava Supokayo me bhava Anuraktu me bhava, sara siddhi me prayatsa, sara karma sitsa me, sitsantriya kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan, Saratada gata bajra mame munsa bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiddhi Me Prayata Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruham. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata bajra mame mansa bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu me bhava, sarasiddhi me prayatsa, sara karma sitsa me, sitsantriya kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan, saratada gata bajra mame mansa bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata bajra mame mansa bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu me bhava, sarasiddhi me prayatsa, sara karma sitsa me, sitsantriya kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan, saratada gata bajra mame mansa bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata bajra mame mansa bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata bajra mame mansa bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada gata bajra mame mansa bajri bhava mahasamaya satvaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiti Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruham Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiti Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruham Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiti Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruham Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. That was 21 recitations. We did it quickly. We can do a few. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiti Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsu Me Sitsantriya Kuruham Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiti Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsu Me Sitsantriya Kuruham Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sarasiti Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsu Me Sitsantriya Kuruham Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Mansa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. So now the dissolution. I and all sentient beings, deluded by our ignorance, have broken the vows. O Lama Vajrasattva, protector, holder of the Vajra, Lord of all sentient beings, please protect us. Vajrasattva is pleased by our prayers and replies. Your delusions are now cleared away, and you are purified. Vajrasattva then dissolves into light and is absorbed into myself through the top of my head. I then become Vajrasattva. So it says, meditate on the union of appearance and emptiness. So the union of appearance and emptiness, that all the things that we see, all the things that we hear, all the things that we can touch, smell, and taste, all these things are all manifestations of the mind. And they all are empty of their own true nature. They are all part of phenomena. They are all part of this indescribable source of what we know as reality. So all this union comes together of the appearances and the emptiness and becomes stable within our heart mind. And this is how we liberate ourselves. This is how we forgive ourselves. This is how we forgive others. Through this union of appearances and emptiness, we see that all things are relative. There's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing to let go of, to relax. So we meditate on this hung syllable. We look on page 88. We see the hung. So in the Sanskrit, that hook is a vowel that is the oo sound, the u sound, oo. And that dissolves into the ha. The ha is the syllable above that. It's got a roof on top of it. That's the ha sound. And then that dissolves into the roof. And then the roof dissolves into, you see that curved line, that curve, that's the moon disk. That's the compassion. And then you see that circle on top of the moon disk is the wisdom, is the sun disk. That's the bindu. And then above that is very small, hard to see in this image here, but is a flame. And that flame is called the nada. And the flame continues to burn. And we're visualizing that everything dissolves going upward into the flame. And then the flame slowly becomes invisible into the emptiness, into the shunyata. So as our mind wanders while we are doing the dissolution, that we visualize, we come back to the dissolution of the vowel, the oo into the ha into the roof into the moon into the sun into the nada. We bring it back to that visualization over and over again until we have moments of clarity, moments of no thought. And then we can continue that over and over again and make that more and more stable. So this is the dissolution. So now we recite this in English again, the dissolution, and then we recite it in the Tibetan all together. I and all sentient beings, deluded by our ignorance, have broken the vows. O Lama Vajrasattva, protector, holder of the Vajra, Lord of all sentient beings, please protect us. Vajrasattva is pleased by our prayers and replies, your delusions are now cleared away and you are purified. Vajrasattva then dissolves into light and is absorbed into myself through the top of my head. I then become Vajrasattva. Meditate on the union of appearances and emptiness. So now we'll do 2 5-minute meditations. Stay in the meditation position. Keeping your back straight is the most important. Take a deep breath and hold it. Exhale and hold it. Breathe in through both nostrils and hold it. Exhale and hold it. Breathe in 4 inches below your navel. Expand the belly. Hold it. Exhale. Squeeze the belly, squeeze all that stale, negative, dark air out and hold it. Relax and breathe normal at your own pace. And visualize the dissolution of the hung syllable. All beings manifesting into light, dissolving into the hung syllable in Vajrasattva. Vajrasattva dissolving into pure white light, filling our body with nectar. Vajrasattva comes into the heart center. The hung at his heart center dissolves from the bottom up to the nada, becoming invisible. Stay relaxed. Take a deep breath and hold it. Exhale. Relax, open your eyes, breathe normal. So that's all the meditation we have time for today. I want to do the dedication, and then after that, we'll have a few questions. So now we recite the dedication on the bottom of page 89. Through the virtue of this practice, may I achieve Vajrasattva's great realization. To this state, may I come to lead every being, not one left behind. In Tibet, Kewa di nor dudag, dorje sampa drubgurne, jowa chikyang malupa, deyi sala gopasho. Okay, thank you. We still have the lineage dedication to do, but we'll do that in a few minutes. First, I'd like to get some comments from everybody as to what you thought of this practice. So, Matt, what did you think of this?
I think this can be a helpful practice. This is one that I would do some a long time ago, but not in this kind of more long form sadhana type of practice. One thing I was wondering is, should we bring, I think this is how I did it before. Again, this was many years ago, but like be bringing certain things to mind, like throughout the day. It's like, things when we were doing some kind of non-virtue, some kind of thought, something we did to be like purifying these specific things and thinking about it. Like, and if so, how does that, where would that come up, like within the sadhana?
Very good. Thank you for that, because that's an important point. Not necessarily do we need to bring something in, because maybe we are having a peaceful, day or something like that. So there's no need to drag something into this. However, where this is most powerful is when you have something that's very, very pressing on you. Say you've had a hard day at work, something really difficult happened, or you're at school, or there was something with the family, or any combination of things that you can imagine that was difficult. This is the time where Vajrasattva really helps, because otherwise we're churning, thinking about this negativity, this confusion, this non-virtue. Maybe you got angry. Maybe somebody got angry at you and it made you feel very agitated and tense and so on. So this is the time to do this practice. And if you do this practice and you commit yourself to doing 1 mile around, or 2 mile arounds, or 3 mile rounds, whatever it was that was bothering you, whatever was the cause of that suffering that you were going through, is gone. You forget. You've transcended it. It fell away as just being afflictive emotion, dualistic thought. And that's really what we need to be able to do. We don't need to analyze it. We don't need to do a lot of stuff at this point. We can just do this to purify that. It's enough to recognize that I'm having difficulty. This is what the difficulty is, and then let the practice do the work. If we stew on it and we're thinking about it over and over again, it just reinforces that negativity. So by doing this, it just relaxes any aversions and attachments that we have. So some of us would come home and be agitated, like I said, and we would go to the refrigerator and pop open a beer, and maybe that becomes another beer, or go to the ice box, get out some ice cubes, go to the liquor cabinet and start having a drink. Or maybe we'd go to our cabinet where we keep our pot and we'd start smoking some pot or something like that. Or we go to the medicine cabinet and we reach in and we get some of our medicine that we got from the doctor or something like that. We would start doing these external things to be able to help us to settle ourselves down from this confusion that we're going through. And those are solutions, but they're temporary solutions, and ones that we are surrendering our control by taking. On the other hand, we can do these practices here, and we can do this naturally. We can do this within ourselves, And this enables us to be able to control ourselves, to be able to rest our own minds, to be able to take care of this. It takes longer, no doubt, but it is much cleaner, it is much more subtle, it is much more beautiful, much more, and will help us in the future by being able to anticipate agitation or things that would have led us to have this kind of conflict, and to recognize those things and to be able to apply the antidotes before it becomes a big problem for ourselves. So I hope that makes some sense. And that has helped me so many times.
Yeah, no, it does. And when would we just be bringing these things to mind and maybe starting to get some of the remorse and some of these things before, kind of at the beginning of the practice, then start the visualization and all of the things? Is that what you do?
Yeah, just to recognize, oh, I'm really feeling hateful. I'm really feeling, jealous. I'm feeling stupid or delusional or something like that. I know what caused it. I don't need to go into that, but now let me liberate from that, and then go into the practice to liberate from that. And that's this is the confession. You know how sometimes when you do something and you don't want to tell anybody, but finally you get up enough courage and you go tell somebody that you did this or this, that, or the other thing, and it's like 100 pounds being lifted off your shoulders. You were afraid to confess it, but once you did, you say, "Wow, that wasn't so bad." But the thing is, do we go back and do it again? That's what we got to guard ourselves against. So that's part of where green tar comes in. You see, all these are all interconnected.
Lance, I had a question. And this was like at 9:30, so this was a couple hours ago, and I just didn't want to interrupt your flow. May I ask you a question about something you've mentioned today?
Certainly.
All right. You said that it's possible, like if we recognize, oh, I've just generated negative karma, or I may, is it really possible to clean it before it comes to fruition? Like in the middle of it, you're like, oh shit, I just did that thing, and I know that bad things gonna happen. Can you really cleanse it before it's fully realized as the effect, like the consequence?
Certainly.
Can you give me a practical example? And I'm asking because in my mindset, and this is helpful and encouraging, is I did the bad thing, and then I'm looking and like, oh, that bad, like I'm like, the negative seed has to now fully ripen. Now you said something that was hopeful for me. It gave me hope to think, oh, by harnessing in the power of intentionality through practice and all these other practical actions and like the mind, I can mitigate it.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, like, could you give us some examples? I got really excited by that.
Well, we got to go back. You got to go back to the 5 poisons.
Yes.
So you got to identify what the cause is going on. You got to look at that. So, and it may be a combination of things. It may not just be one thing. It's a combination of 2 or 3 or 4, maybe even all 5 of these things. So you got to look at that. Then once you do that, now you got to apply the antidote. You have to apply the medicine. So the medicine is the antidote. And so for each of those causes, whatever they are, we need to apply the prayer, we need to apply the generosity, we need to apply the education, whatever it is, we need to do those things to be able to cut it off. Even if we did those things, if we committed the karma, if we created the action, now we have to mitigate the result of that. So we do that. And then there may be something that we have to go back and we have to repair it by way of going to somebody and apologizing. Or if we took something to give it back, or if we can't give it back, say, maybe you realize something that happened many years ago that every now and again comes up in your mind, and you suppress it. But every now and again, it comes up in your mind. You say, oh, geez, there it is again. Can you find some circumstance where now you can go to somebody else. Maybe that person that you did that harmful thing to is long gone, but you find somebody else that you can do something for that is a reparation for that which you did before. So in other words, there's some kind of a reparation, there's some kind of an atonement that you can do for that negative action. And it has to be a concentrated thing. It has to be something that you're thinking about. So that's really the answer to it.
I had a profound moment yesterday with my mom and dad. I was driving them to the airport to Washington, D.C., and they like to lecture me about why am I not Muslim. So as I'm driving them for 30 minutes, I got all sorts of guidance on reading the Quran. So 30 minutes, they're like, we know you're so sad since you're divorced. We want you to go to heaven. And I caught myself like talking about the thought stream. And I just kept going back to have compassion, because Zara 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago, Lance would have been like, do you all really need to say this to me? I would have been defensive. My ego would be like, can you please stop lecturing me? Like, stop it. Like, I'm trying. But I just listened and listened. And then I said, thank you so much for caring about my well-being. And what happened, here's what happened, because like a year ago, I couldn't have done that. I was able to send them some love and emojis. And then it was beautiful. They're like, we love you so much. And then something beautiful happened. By me having that compassion, that was really hard for me. I wanted to scream at both of them yesterday but I had negative thoughts for like a couple minutes where I was like inundated. And then I was like, this is it. This is it right here, practice. So I was just thinking of what you were saying in the beginning and thinking, was that an example of me cutting off? I had negative thoughts, but immediately within an hour, it was okay, because I made an intentionality to be like, just be thankful they care about your life.
Right. So let's put it in these terms. The cause of what you were going through was your anger towards what they were saying. It was
Correct.
attacking your ego.
Yes.
So what was your remedy? What did you do as to be able to negate that, to be able to neutralize that? What did you do?
I just went to the four thoughts. I just went to compassion, and that was my mom. My mom is my heart.
It was compassion. It was loving kindness, wasn't it? Instead of showing them anger, you were showing them loving kindness.
Yes. It was hard, Lance. I wanted to
you humbled yourself. You humbled yourself, and you did what was hard. But that was, so looking at it very, very simply, that's what you did.
But that's every day. We have to be able to do that. That's what I was able to do. Every single moment you are living in that stream of consciousness where you recognize it, kind of like, and I thought about that. I'm like, this is what he's talking about. This is how I live every moment, versus it's like you talk about the glimpses where it becomes inverse, right? Where it's abnormal for you to think of it in any other way. Now it's weird when I see, oh, this is it. And so I'm starting to gain this insight into the practicality of it. And I'm looking forward to where it's reverse, where it's all the time like that. And I never feel like angry and defensiveness. So I thought that was significant for me. Sometimes you say things that like in these succinct sentences, Lance, that hit home. They're like home run sentences. And that was a home run sentence for me when you said it that way earlier. Thank you.
Well, good. Well, thank you. So practice is the key to this, habituating your bodhicitta, And you can have an aspiration to do it, but when you engage in it and you're actually doing it through the practices, that's where the difference is made. Just the aspiration doesn't necessarily do it.
Lance, I almost put them on an Uber yesterday. I almost pulled over and said, we're going to go ahead and do 15 minutes on Uber. So I actually this morning, I said, let me go ahead and ask when they want me to pick them up, because it's a small action like that. So That's funny that you said that.
And imagine how miserable you would have been had you done something like that.
I would have been tormented. I would have been mentally tormented the rest of the day.
And they for a week, 2 weeks. And not only that, but your parents would have been tormented. It would have been terrible on everybody's side. And then they would be talking to the Uber driver, and the Uber driver would get upset, and all this kind of stuff would happen.
Yeah. It's just been this is just so wonderful. So thank you so much. I don't want to monopolize this opportunity for questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Karina, what would you say about this?
Hey guys, Karina was
Yeah,
kind of,
I
she's
know.
been feeling not good today. And but I know that I have a lot to say. Um, I appreciate everybody talking, especially Sarah. It was funny to hear your conversation, and I really learned a lot. Um, I like about the practice today, I like the melody that you had incorporated in the beginning. And I noticed that just like singing that melody had brought joy to my heart. Yeah. And like prior to us beginning the melody, my heart didn't feel that activation. So I really appreciate it. And I see the beauty of incorporating the melody. Um, and it was awesome to hear you answer Sarah's question on how to nullify some bad karma. Uh, I really appreciate that as well. But I like this. I like this particular practice, the Vajrasattva Sattva, and I would like to begin trying to do this more often myself. So I really appreciate your knowledge today and wisdom, Lance. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Gavin. And yeah, it's that's why we call this the enjoyment body. This is all the Sambhogagaya. This is the enjoyment body. These meditative deities are all part of the Sambhogagaya. And the Sambhogagaya is really the result of the Buddha's compassion to be able to create all this imagery, to create all this metaphor and so on like that, so that ordinary beings like us can begin to understand what it is to be free. And here are examples of how to do that, and not only examples, but here is method as to how to be able to do that.
Right.
So yeah, so this is the enjoyment body.
I had a question that was pertaining to kind of back to Sarah's question. She was talking about the nullification. I had once thought that, if what on the opposite side of that, if someone feels like they want to go do positive things so they get good karma, is the act of them being in concert with the idea that they're going to get good karma if they go do something good, does that nullify the good karma in the future? Because they're not doing it out of unintention. They're intending to create a future good karma by doing something good. Or should it just come naturally? Should the human just naturally go do something good and not have a concert in their mind? And then which one of those decisions would be more of a building of karma?
Well, I think there does need to be an intention, and there does need to be a forethought about that intention and so on. And maybe that's motivation for a lot of us to go into the careers that we go into. We want to be helpers, we want to be counselors, we want to be doctors, we want to be, pure lawyers. I mean, we want to help people to succeed at something. They've been
Right.
And for the purest reasons, we want to help people and so on. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's good. And to recognize that, yes, I'm going to have a useful place in society, interaction in society and so on. And that's going to help me to accept other people's good intentions that will help me and so on like that. So that's all good. If it's being done selfishly, then maybe that's what you might be thinking about.
Yeah, that's a good.
If it's done selfishly, that's not a pure intention. So that would have some negative repercussions to it. But ultimately, that it should be effortless, and it should be habitual. That you do these good things and so on. That you don't even think about that you're doing them. You're just doing them because that's what your nature is. You're speaking from your heart. You're doing from your heart. And that's really where we're trying to get to, that it becomes completely effortless.
Nice. Completely agree with that statement.
And all that it revolves around the practice. You know, you can't aspire your way into that. You gotta begin to do the practice. That's where it changes. So I hope Karina's feeling okay, and we'll catch up. We'll catch up.
Yeah, my head very pain. I have a migraine, something.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, but I'm already a little bit feel better, but
okay. Well, good.
thank you very much.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you again soon then.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Guy, would you like to add something?
This is one of the most impactful practices I've ever had. Because somehow I began to feel a path, a way of dealing with the multitude of things that we face, both personally and globally every day, and how it affects us, and how I internalize it, and how I process it. And I sometimes come up with solutions that really go nowhere. They just orbit around inside of me. It is the storm that we carry within all of us. And this particular practice gives us a way away from that, a resolution of that, if we do it. I think it's listening to this and thinking about it, and that, of course, I've been to many of these, but there is almost an epiphany in this sort of practice. It was very important to me, very meaningful to me. Purification, because there are so many poisons in the world that we're exposed to, and that we internalize ourselves, that we just and we let them swirl around inside of us, and we come up with these mythical solutions that we implement in our mind, but that really go nowhere. It's just a process of wringing out our anger and our ego, and in our imaginations, having some sort of vindication and vengeance of what has happened to us or what someone else has done wrong. And we're left empty, and not in a good way. So this practice has meant a lot to me today, particularly.
Well, very good. Thank you. Yes, you said, the purification, this is a purification practice. And what we're purifying is not just our physical body, not just that, but we're purifying our intellect. We're purifying the things that we think we know. We're correcting those things, those misconceptions and so on, that we hold on to as being true, and maybe they're half true. And this gives us the time and the facility to be able to say, well, I haven't been thinking about that quite clearly enough, correctly enough. And I need to purify that whole idea, that whole thought form, that whole practice, whatever it is. So it's a very dynamic, dynamic purification practice. Mark, would you like to comment on something? How did this land on you?
I thought it was very insightful, and I liked it a lot, and it makes a lot of sense. It's very down to earth to me, so I had no problem with that. But I do have a question. As regards the 100-syllable mantra, the pronunciation of many of these words escapes me. So instead of making a mess of the translation, the transliteration, what does it mean for me to recite the 100-syllable mantra in English?
It's fine, because we should know the translation. We should know the English, because that's where the meaning is. However, at some point, I think, you would actually naturally move to want to do it in the Sanskrit and to start getting with the melody and so on, because there is a synchronization, there is a harmony with that vibration that the individual language, the English language or Spanish language or whatever, kind of doesn't get. But when you do it in the Sanskrit, then you get that harmony, you know. But with that goes the meaning, and that comes from our native language. So at some point, you should definitely be making effort to do the Sanskrit, and don't worry about fracturing the language and so on. You know, you can go to 20 different lamas and have 20 different lamas teach you the way they recite this, and they're all going to have their own dialect to it. They're going to have their own little, you know, ways of pronouncing things and so on, and that's fine. You know, you start doing it. You listen to, you know, a teacher that you respect and you can have access to regularly and so on, and you do the best you can with it, and gradually it'll become better and easier for you, and you'll find that, like Gavin was saying, that there is a real connection with the melody, you know, with those words hanging together and so on. And it has to be experienced to really be appreciated, but it's true. And for myself, to have memorized these different mantras, to do it as a straight chant, I wouldn't be as successful as doing it with the melodies, because the words just fit together. It just flows. It's very natural. So that's my answer. Thank you.
So would it make sense for me to give you a call sometime during the week and go word for word, so I can write down, or I can change these, so to speak, right under them?
Sure.
Or above them to get the right pronunciation?
Yeah, or you can come over, you know, we can do it together at the table. So you can come on over, we can do that. I'll come visit you, whatever, you know, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And anybody else that wants to do that is fine with me. You know, we can do it over the phone, over Zoom, whatever's convenient. And remember that on our website are the lamas doing this. So that's who we're trying to get to, you know, because they're reciting it in a very beautiful way. Very, very good. All right. Well, we've gone late today, but thank you very much for hanging in, and thank you for paying attention for this. This is a very important practice. So next week, I would like to do the practice again, because it's very important. So we'll answer any other questions that come up, you know, in the meantime, and maybe I can give a little bit more elaboration on a few points that we kind of, you know, moved over quickly, and then we can do the whole practice again and get through a whole mile around, because you really feel the power. The first time you do it, you're thinking, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this, are we done? How many more do I have to do? I'm not pronouncing it right. You go through all these mental games and everything. But once you get the first one down, then the next one and the next one after that seem much easier, quicker, and so on, and much more rewarding and so on. So you got to make the commitment to do the practice, to do these things, and you'll start seeing, you know, how it really is. These are our examples. These are the examples of what it is to be a holy enlightened being. So it's all within us. Okay, so we go to page 157 and the Deity Yoga books. If you have the 101 books, go to that book. We'll just do the short, the Dekorma prayer. So on page 159 or on page 20. So I know people have things to do, but we need to do our dedication, because this is the realization that everything we are doing is for the better, for enlightenment for other beings. So we're sealing that with this. So the Dekorma prayer. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Trikampa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Lance. Thanks a lot. I really, really appreciate what you're doing with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. I second that. Hope you feel better soon, Karina. I gotta go.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
Matt.
everybody.
Yes, thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
We'll see you tomorrow evening. See you
I'm
tomorrow.